George St. Pierre, Alexander Volkanovski, Tyson Fury. What do these three men all have in common? They're at the top of their game and they're clean shaved, and you could be too with Manscaped. The MMA Sucker podcast is happy to announce that we are now sponsored by Manscaped, and you can get a massive 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code SUCKER at checkout. Now, a little bit about Manscaped. Manscaped is the best in men's below the waist grooming, offering precision engineering tools for your family jewels. With Valentine's Day just around the corner, there's no better time to invest in the all-new Performance Package 5.0 Ultra, designed to elevate your grooming game. As part of the Performance Package, we have the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra, which I've been lucky enough to get my hands on, and it is a quality bit of kit. Quality bit of kit. The electric trimmer features skin-safe technology, making it harder for you to nick yourself than it would be to land on prime Anderson Silver. It also comes with their brightest ever LED spotlight yet. It's brighter than the lights of the UFC. I mean, come on, guys, check this out. Got that? Look at that bright light. Brighter than the lights of the UFC, I'm telling you. On top of that, it's also waterproof, making shower shaves an absolute breeze. But that's not everything. This package also features the Weed Whacker 2.0 nose hair trimmer, Manscaped's liquid formulations, and two free goodies. The Shed travel bag, which I've been, again, lucky enough to get my hands on, and Boxers 2.0, because let's be honest, guys, comfort is king. And for those of you that want the sculptured Roy Nelson-esque beard, Manscaped brings you the Beard Hedge Pro Kit, designed to shape your scruff effortlessly. It sculpts the cheek lines and maintains the beard style to give you the suave look for every single occasion, especially those romantic occasions with Valentine's Day coming up. Join 10 million, let that sink in, 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with our exclusive offer. Go to manscaped.com to bag 20% off with the code SUCKER. Is that enough? No? Throw in free worldwide shipping. Like I said, head over to Manscaped. Head over to manscaped.com. Use the code SUCKER, that's SUCKA at checkout for 20% off and free worldwide shipping. Thank me later. Your balls will thank you. Hello, guys. Welcome back to the MMA Sucker podcast. My name is Frazer. I hope you enjoyed our news. We are now sponsored by Manscaped. You can get 20% off and free worldwide shipping at checkout with the code SUCKER. That's SUCKA. Your balls will thank you. And now on with the show. We had finally the UFC was back, and on paper it was a reasonable card, but I think what we got was a lot of finishes, and most importantly, in the main event, we're set up for quite a big, the winner of that fight, spoilers, Magomed Ankalev. I think he set himself up for quite a big 2024. So how the layout of this show will go, we've got a few different things to talk about. I want to talk about Manal Cap before I go into the card. I'll go into this past weekend's card, this past UFC Fight Night card live from Vegas, first one of the year, like I said, and then I'm going to go into breaking down and looking at UFC 297 because it looks like a pretty decent card, and it's the first pay-per-view of the year. I will just quickly, momentarily touch on Artur Beterbiev knocked out Callum Smith this weekend, hopefully setting up, there's no reason as to why that won't set up the fight between Beterbiev and Bivol. Beterbiev he is what he's aging like a fine wine, and that's also something we can say about one of the guys on the UFC card. The older Bivol I think his 39th birthday is later this week or later this month. He just seems to be getting better and better and better, fight on fight on fight. And he did to Callum Smith something that no one's ever done to Callum Smith. Callum Smith has that lone loss to Canelo on his record, and I'll be honest, I thought that he may have defeated Beterbiev, but Beterbiev now, still undefeated, every single fight finished by knockout. him versus Bivol is the fight that I'm extremely excited for. Wouldn't be surprised to see it go into the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. It doesn't matter to me where it is. I want these two guys to fight for the undisputed, for the title of being undisputed. But I didn't watch the fight in any great detail. I saw some highlights, but something I did watch in a load of detail was the UFC Fight Night card. Like I said, UFC Fight Night live from the UFC Apex. Gotta get away from the Apex now. It's still, we're kind of years on from COVID, and it's still looking like it's a bit of a a money saving exercise by the UFC to put on shows in the Apex. But we also have to recognize that I think fighters turn up a little bit more when they're in front of a crowd. They almost want to put on a show. It is what it is. We got a really good start to the year, I thought. I think I want to just touch on Joshua Van, first fight of 2024, flyweight prospect, and he looks really good. That first round was tough for him. I think he struggled to find the range. Then he just stuck it on Felipe Bunes and finished him by TKO. Joshua Van is now 2-0 in the UFC, I believe. Sorry, 3-0 in the UFC. That's his first UFC finish. And it's the first his first two UFC fights had gone to a decision. Now the first two fights in his career to go to decision. I think he's a real good prospect. He's fought a lot. He's fought 3 fights in just under 7 months. Sorry, and he's a really, really exciting prospect. At 22 years old, the guy's already fought 11 times, and he's fought 3 times in the UFC. I think this is a guy that we're going to see in and around the top 10, top 5 in years to come. And if you haven't watched that fight, it lasts just under 10 minutes. Definitely go back and watch it, because you see that Joshua Van is a notorious he's a bit of a slow starter in that first round. And then he just, like I said, he just stuck it on Bunes in the second round. I thought Farhad Barsha looks really good, just doing what he does, crisp. For me, Barsha, there's nothing ever he doesn't do an awful lot wrong for his opponents to counter him with, and Taylor Lapalus didn't really have many openings at all. I thought Marcus McGee was really good. Gaston Bolanos, a little bit disappointed in him, but it is what it is. Andrei Arlovsky picked up a loss to Waldo Cortes Acosta. Again, it is what it is. Bruno Ferreira knocked out Phil Halls. I think that's the 4th time Phil Halls has been knocked out badly in the UFC, and the 3rd in as many fights. I think that might be it for Phil Halls in the UFC. Everyone knew this one wasn't going out the first round. These guys just love a first round knockout between them. Phil Halls, in his past 5 fights, he's won 1 and lost 4, and those 4 that he's lost have all been by knockout. I think if the UFC are gonna do it sensibly and carefully, they're probably gonna cut Phil Halls, because you don't want to see a guy taking damage like that. Mauro Bautista defeated Ricky Simone via decision across 3 rounds. Again, a really good performance. Let me just pull up the stats for this one. He just outworked him. His takedown defense was on point. He only got taken down twice out of 13 attempts by Ricky Simone. And even with those 2 takedowns, Simone didn't really do an awful lot. And like I said, he just outworked him. I think that final round was really put the icing on the cake for Mauro Bautista. It was a really solid performance. And Bautista's coming to let me just check where he's ranked, because if he's not ranked in the top 10, he's coming to he's not. Mario Bautista he's not even ranked in the top 15. I think Mario Bautista is coming to a top 10, top 15 near you. He's just beat Ricky Simone, who's ranked number 13. We can expect Ricky Simone to possibly drop out of the rankings now, and Bautista to take his ranking spot. In the co-main event, as I said with Beterbiev, Jim Miller, aging like a fine wine, made the walk for I think it's his 140th UFC fight, and he finishes fights. Jim Miller finishes fights. If we look at his past 5 wins, all finishes. Yes, he lost to Alexander Hernandez in there by decision back in February of last year, but the last time Jim Miller won a decision was on at UFC 205 on the Alvarez versus McGregor card. He finishes fights every single time he steps in there. Every single time he wins a fight, it's a finish. This one finished by face crank. And we can expect to see Jim Miller return on April 13th at UFC 300, and rightfully so. He competed on 100, he competed on 200. He deserves, as the company man that he is, to compete on 300. And let's hope that he gets the call out that he asked for Brock Lesnar or Paul Felder or Matt Brown. But let's see Jim Miller versus Brock Lesnar if we can make that. But no, in the main event, I don't want to talk about the actual fight too much because I thought this was really kind of all it was always going to go this way. Magomed Ankalev is obviously the crisper striker. He did knock out Johnny Walker in the second round at 2 minutes 42. Um, didn't come as a great surprise to me, to be honest. Johnny Walker is one of these fighters where if you're not expecting him to, he comes at you and hits you in unexpected angles like we've seen with flying knees, spinning kicks, spinning back fists. We know what Johnny Walker's about. We know that he's got kind of unprecedented, I wouldn't say unprecedented power, but he always seems to be, falling over his feet. He's got a bit of a capoeira style, bit of a taekwondo style. But Magomed Ankalaev is just the crisper striker. And I think that's exactly what we were seeing in the first fight. And I think that's exactly what we saw in this fight. Yes, Johnny Walker, did have success in this fight as he did in the first fight between the two men. But for me, Ankalaev stayed calm, composed, under pressure, under the sort of lights, as it were, when you've got this potential crazy striker sort of coming at you. And just did exactly what he needed to do: stay crisp, stay disciplined, stay calm in there, and get the job done. I think he did that in pretty dominant fashion. The second round knockout after the first round, I think was they were still kind of feeling each other out. I was worried that there'd be another foul to kick off 2024, but luckily we didn't get that. But I think it more than the performance itself, I think it sets up. The question is now, like, what's next for Ankalaev? What's next for Johnny Walker? Johnny Walker, I don't think will maybe go down in the rankings. I don't think maybe Magomed Ankalaev will rise up and take Jiri Prochazka's number two spot. Sorry, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't. I wouldn't be surprised if he does. It's one of those. For me, Johnny Walker. Johnny Walker's he's always going to be a name because of the kind of character that he is. Is he ever going to be a champion? No. Is he ever going to compete for a bout? Probably not. Is Magomed Ankalaev going to compete for a bout? I really do think he will. He came out after the fight and sort of almost demanded the title shot, but we don't know. I mean, we don't know what the situation is with Jamal Hill at the moment. He is pretty much deserving of a title shot against Alex Pereira when he comes back, or deserving of a shot at the belt, regardless of who carries that belt when he comes back. Because let's not forget, Jamal Hill was the reigning, would have been the defending light heavyweight champion, got himself injured, and that's why he vacated the belt for Jiri Prochazka and Alex Pereira to compete for it. He wants that title shot, title opportunity again on his return. I think he deserves it. Like I said, you've got to beat the man to be the man, and Alex Pereira has not yet beaten the. He beat Jiri Prochazka after Jiri Prochazka picked up the belt after he was injured, allowing Jamal Hill and Glover Teixeira to compete for it. Jamal Hill won the belt. Jamal Hill's the man. Jamal Hill is yet to beat Jiri Prochazka. It's a very difficult situation. I say you've got to beat the man to be the man, but Jamal Hill never beat Jiri Prochazka. So does that mean that Jiri Prochazka is technically still the champion, but then Alex Pereira beat him, but Alex Pereira never beat Jamal Hill, who was the champion. It's a very, like I say, it's a very, very difficult situation at light heavyweight. And now you add Magomed Ankalaev into the question. Ankalaev came out in the post-fight press conference and said, look, essentially, not only did he call out Alex Pereira, which is the right thing to do, he needs to put his name in the hat, but he also said, look, I'm not there to wrestle and to shoot on you and to wrestle. I'm there to stand and bang with you. Respectfully to Ankalaev, we all know that he's got solid wrestling when he needs it. If we look at that Jan Blachowicz fight, he was getting his leg eaten up in the first two rounds. Really bad. He was losing the fight in the first two rounds. In that third round, He took the fight. This is Magomed stats for Magomed Ankalaev versus Jan Blachowicz. Ankalaev took Blachowicz down and landed 40 of 70 strikes on him. In the fourth round, he took him down again, controlled him for 4.5 minutes, landed 55 of 70 strikes. And in the final round, although he didn't land the takedown, the fight made its way to the floor after just 10 seconds. Magomed Ankalaev had 4 minutes 50 control time, 54 strikes landed of 82 attempted. Magomed Ankalaev, of course, he's going to tell Alex Pereira, don't train wrestling. I'm going to stand and bang with you. But we all know, that isn't true. When he does begin to struggle in a fight like he did against Jan Blachowicz, he wrestles. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. This is mixed martial arts. This is not kickboxing. This is not boxing. This is mixed martial arts. You need to be able to mix the martial arts in order to get the win, and that's exactly what Magomed Ankalaev, apologies, is capable of doing. I genuinely think that he could win the belt with relative ease if he was just to wrestle. I don't think he will. I think he's got quite a big ego. I think, he will look to stand with Alex Pereira for those at least the first round. If it makes it out of the first round, fair play, but he'll stand with Pereira for at least the first round. And then I think he'll have a little bit of a look, see how he feels in the stand up, and if he needs to revert to his wrestling, he will, like we saw against Jan Blachowicz. But yeah, I think that's kind of all we need to talk about for the first fight night of the year. But what I really want to get into is looking at the fights to look out for, and especially having a little breakdown of the UFC 297 card, live from Toronto, Canada. From what I hear, it's absolutely Baltic in Canada at the moment, so it's probably not going to be too fun a fight week for all the guys and girls competing on the card. Just looking down the card until I get to the co-main and main event. I'm excited for Jazz Davicius. She's competing at home in Canada. She's coming off a disappointing loss to Tracy Cortez. Before that, she beat Miranda Maverick and Gabriela Fernandez. I think she's got someone in Priscilla Cachoeira who I think will play into her game a little bit more. But we know that she's a really heavy hitter. Her last two wins, Ji Young Kim, she dominated Kim in my opinion. She really did. I think that was a fight of the night. It was a fight of the night, and then she went on to knock out Ariana Lipski, which is looking like a really really good win. It's aging like a fine wine, as we know. Sam Patterson returns for his second UFC appearance. Obviously, he won on the Contender Series. He then lost in London. He knocked out pretty badly in that one. We didn't really get to see much of Sam. He takes on Johan Lenise, 2-2 in the UFC. He's picked up wins. Sorry, he's 2-1 in the UFC. He's 1-2. He's got one win, two losses in the UFC. His last loss was to Mike Malott, who we'll go on to talk about later. We've got Gillian Robertson returning. I think she's returning at strawweight again. She lost to Tabitha Ricci last time out at strawweight. She's very up and down, Gillian Robertson. I think she's got all the skills in the world to be a world champion. She's committing to strawweight now. She's obviously she was a strawweight and then she was a flyweight, and I think she's now committing to being a strawweight again. I think she's got all the skill in the world to potentially, like I say, be a world champion, but she really needs to stay in a weight class where she knows that she can be dominant. Where she can feel strong. She needs to round out a stand-up game and a defensive wrestling, I feel. But she's got the best jiu-jitsu probably aside from maybe Mackenzie Dern in MMA, in women's MMA today. So, I'm picking Robertson via finish in that one. Submission finish. We've got Charles Jourdain versus Sean Woodson. That's got fight of the night written all over it. Got Brad Katona, who's coming off his obviously second tough victory. And then we get to the main card. We've got Arnold Allen versus Movsar Evelev, who I think the winner of this one could potentially, I'm not saying it will, but could potentially be the next contender for the featherweight belt, especially if Alexander Volkanovski wins, because he will have cleared out the division pretty comprehensively. Arnold Allen, we last saw him against Max Holloway, and Max Holloway's game just kind of played into Arnold Allen's. Um, sorry, Arnold Allen's game kind of just played into Max Holloway's. Arnold Allen will walk forward as we saw against Dan Hooker, as we saw, we've seen throughout his career, is he will just walk forward, swing, and try and knock you out. Against Max Holloway, Holloway is one of the most skilled defensive and elusive and counter punchers we've ever seen in the UFC. So I think that the fight really did play in the favor of Max Holloway, and I think that loss really, really hurt Arnold Allen. He returns now, though. That was in April of last year. He returns now to take on Movsar Evelev. Now, this is a tough fight for Allen. Evelev, undefeated, 17-0, but for me, hasn't ever looked like he's going to be an absolute killer. He came into the UFC with a lot of hype, understandably so, undefeated heading into the UFC. But for me, like I say, he's never quite caught fire. And for someone to be 17 and 29, Russian featherweight, training out of ATT, for someone to be 17-0, for me, they really should be finishing fight on fight. And there should be a lot of hype around Masvidal. Even like this should have been a main event kind of situation, in my opinion, because of the fact that he's undefeated 17-0, but he's only got 7 finishes in his career, none of which have come inside the UFC. He's gone to decision in every single fight that he's had in the UFC. Granted, he's 7-0 in the UFC, but every single one of those 7 fights have gone to a decision. He's out wrestling guys, but not really doing much with it. Mike Grundy out wrestled. Nick Lenz, he narrowly out wrestled. Hakeem Dawodu out wrestled. Dan Ige out wrestled. Diego Lopez last time I actually thought Lopez deserves maybe not the win, but certainly more of a you know props for taking that fight on short notice. But Evelev is good. He is good. He averages 4.71 takedowns per 15 minutes with an accuracy of 50%. He lands 4.57 strikes per minute and only absorbs 2.74. Arnold Allen needs to be able to defend the takedown. And if he can defend the takedown, he then needs to sting Movsar Evelev with shots to prevent him from coming in. The thing is with Allen, I'm not wholly convinced that he can do that. Arnold Allen is a good fighter without a doubt, but he doesn't. Against Mans Burnell back in 2018, he was taken down 6 times. Against Makwan Amirkhani, he was taken down 4 times. Yes, he managed to come through in those fights, and he hasn't been taken down since 2018, according to these stats. But you look at the guys that he's facing; these guys aren't going to look to take him down. Max Holloway doesn't really shoot for takedowns. Calvin Kattar doesn't shoot for takedowns. Dan Hooker, Sadiq Youssef, Nick Lenz does shoot for takedowns, and I believe that Arnold Allen did well to defend that. No takedowns on 9 attempts for Nick Lenz. Gilbert Melendez shot for 2 takedowns in their fight. It's going to be a tough night, in my opinion, for Arnold Allen. But he does have the higher level experience. He has headlined a UFC fight night card now. And I do think that he can do it as long as he defends the takedown of Movsar Evelev. We've got a fun, well, two fun, really. We've got a fun middleweight and a fun welterweight clash. Chris Curtis returns to face Marc-Andre Barrio. Barrio is coming off. He's two wins out of his last 3. Not bad going. Not an awful lot of implications, in my opinion, for that fight. Chris Curtis, I think, is ranked. Yeah, Chris Curtis ranked number 13. They could switch places if Barrio wins, but like I say, it's not massive implications. There's far more implications in Mike Malott versus Neil Magny. Magny, of course, ranked number 13. Malott undefeated. Undefeated in the UFC. He's 10-1-1 in his professional career. Take into account that his loss came at featherweight to Hakeem Dawodu, and now he's competing at welterweight. He came through the Contender Series with a rear naked choke victory. He holds wins over Mickey Gall, Johan Lainez, like I said earlier, and Adam Fuguet last time out. I think he wins this one pretty easily. He's very good on the ground. He's very good at getting the fight to the ground. Let's just pull up the stats of his takedowns. Yeah, Mike Mallott is legit. You know, he's got a takedown accuracy of 55%. He lands 2.53, so just over 2.5 takedowns per minute, per fight, sorry, per per round. But what we have to understand is Neil Magny, there's he's had so many fights, you know, he's had 40 professional fights. The blueprint is now there to beat him. Gilbert Burns took him down, dominated him, subbed him. Ian Gary battered his legs. He could barely walk. Gary, I don't think was actually given any takedowns in that fight, but sorry, knockdowns in that fight. Or he's given two, but Neil Magny was constantly on the floor because the legs were taken away from him. If Mike Malott can do that and then look for the takedown submission, I think he wins it with ease. But I think this fight card is all about the co-main and especially the main event. Co-main event, UFC bantamweight title bout between Raquel Rocky Pennington and Maria Bueno Silva. Raquel Pennington's second shot at the belt. Let's not forget that she lost to Amanda Nunes back in the day, and Bueno Silva's first shot at the belt. Form is certainly with Raquel Pennington. I think she's got the higher level wins, especially in recent times. If you look at her last five wins, they came against Marion Renault, Pani Kianzad, Macy Chierson, Aspen Ladd, and Ketlin Vieira last time out. That was in January of last year. So it's over a year since she actually competed, Raquel Pennington. Moya Bono Silva's last couple of bouts, she lost a man on Fiorot down at I mean, Bueno Silva technically is on a 3 fight winning streak. If we're going to be technical, she's on a 3 fight winning streak. She lost to Montella Dalla Rosa. She lost to Manon Fiorot. She then moved up in weight, beat Wu Yanan, beat Stephanie Egger, beat Lena Landsberg, and then she had the no contest. It was a win. It was a win via guillotine choke over Holly Holm. It got turned over to a no contest because she failed a drugs test. Not a great look for the UFC to be giving someone a title shot after she failed a drug test, but it is what it is. For me, I think Rocky looks to keep this long, keep it standing. You know, she's an inch taller. She's got an inch longer reach advantage, but she fights longer than Bueno Silva. Bueno Silva's quite, you know, she's a bit of a power puncher. She's quite tight with her her guard. Is everything, you know, everything is gritted teeth. Don't expect this one to go to the ground too much. Each woman averages less than a takedown per 15 minutes. Takedown accuracy on both parts isn't great, so I do expect a standing battle. But if it was to hit the floor, I think Raquel Pennington's got the better wrestling, but Bueno Silva's got the better jiu-jitsu. Who do I think is going to win this one? It's really hard for me to tell. Like I said, Bueno Silva's got 7 submissions and a single knockout on her career, but she is a power. She does hit hard. She can control her opponents up against the fence, like we saw against Holly Holm. She was able to control Holly Holm up against the fence and then land the guillotine sort of when Holly Holm sort of laxed in concentration. I I'm leaning towards Raquel Pennington just based on the fact that she's had the bigger, more difficult fights in recent times. She's fought the higher level girls. You know, no disrespect to Stephanie Egger and Lena Landsberg. Obviously, that Holly Holm fight, she won that as well. But these are not the elite girls. Lena Landsberg is very one dimensional. She's a stand up girl. Stephanie Egger also very one dimensional. Holly Holm, you know, later days has become quite a one dimensional wrestler. On Raquel Pennington's resume, you've got stand up Ketlin Vieira, pretty marauding wrestler, Aspen Ladd. You've got really long fighter, Macy Chierson, Pani Kianzad, really well rounded. Marion Renault, really good wrestler. You know, she has a lot, you know, she also won over Irene Aldana. Let's not forget that, you know, she has already had this opportunity. She's already made the walk. She's headlined a UFC pay-per-view before back in 2018 against Amanda Nunes. Nunes did finish her, granted, but we're talking about the GOAT here. She's really good, Raquel Pennington. Straight up, she's really good, and I do think that she will win this one based purely on the fact that she's fought high level competition. She's used to this main stage, but Bueno Silva is saying all the right things. I wouldn't. It's a really tough one to to call, as is the main event. Sean Strickland puts his middleweight title on the line for the first time ever against Dricus du Plessis. This one I'm really excited for. Sean Strickland pulled off maybe if Alexa Grasso didn't exist, the upset of the year last year. He was my male fighter of the year in the MMA Sucker Podcast Awards, 3-0, and battered Israel Adesanya essentially in his own backyard. He puts his like I said, he puts his middleweight title on the line for the first time ever. It's the first time ever he'll make the final walk of a pay-per-view as the champion. He'll be wearing those black and gold shorts. And it's Sean Strickland fight week. We're gonna get sound bites from minute one. What I really do think that we will find out who wins this fight in the first round. If Sean Strickland can get his jab going and jab going early, which I'm predicting that he does, I think that it's going to be a long night for Dricus du Plessis. Sean Strickland spars, and it was hard sparring last week. Is that a good idea? I'm not too sure, but what it does mean is that it won't take him too long to find his range, find his timing. These guys, both 6'1", both 76 reach advantage, and both have to hit 185. So, it's an even bout. They're different they're different kinds of fighters for sure. Sean Strickland is a volume guy. He very rarely throws a power punch. He's outstruck pretty much every guy that he's fought. He outstruck Jared Cannonier when they fought, even though he lost. He outstruck Nasruddin Imanov. He outstruck Abbas Magomedov for that short fight, and he outstruck Israel Adesanya pretty convincingly as well in that performance when he won the belt. But I think if he can get his jab going, and the straight shots for me are really what are going to pay dividends for Sean Strickland, because Dricus du Plessis, he needs to be put off throwing these big looping hooks that he does. He's a very difficult guy to hit when he blitzes forward. And he does, he's got quite a herky-jerky movement. He, like Bueno Silva I was on about earlier, Dricus is very tight. Everything comes from a tight position. And it's, if he lands on you, ask Robert Whittaker, it hurts. He's gone to decision, I think, once in the UFC. And all the other fights he's finished, he's gone to decision once against Brad Tavares, but with the greatest respect to Brad Tavares, Dricus du Plessis battered him in that one. He holds some really big, good wins. That Darren Till fight I rewatched the other day, and we know what Darren Till is like. He's quite one-dimensional. He's got really quite poor wrestling, but Dricus was beating him up in the clinch. Darren got the fight to back to his feet, and then Dricus did a really, really good job of timing Darren Till and taking him down, and subsequently getting the rear naked choke, or it's gone down as a neck crank, but got the submission. Derek Brunson just outworked Brunson, causing Derek Brunson's team to throw the towel in. And Robert Whittaker, let's not forget, he dropped and hurt Robert Whittaker with a jab. He's super powerful, Dricus du Plessis, but he does leave openings for his opponents. Dricus du Plessis does come in with these big looping sort of overhands, big looping hooks. And if Sean Strickland can just throw shots down, we know what Sean Strickland's guard is like. It's very central, it's very narrow. If he can throw straight shots, mixing the leg kick, the leg kick I think is really going to pay dividends in this one, because it will maybe prevent Dricus du Plessis really exploding off his lead leg or off his back leg. And Sean Strickland has the ability to do that. I don't think Sean Strickland can knock Dricus du Plessis out. I don't think Sean Strickland can hurt Dricus. But I do think that Sean Strickland can outsmart Dricus by every time that Dricus sort of loads up for a big shot, just a little pop jab down the middle, a pop front kick like we saw him do against Israel Adesanya. But these are two guys that neither of these guys is a defensive fighter. Neither of these guys ever look to exactly fight on the back foot like an Israel Adesanya. That they're not counter strikers. That's why I and many others, pretty much everyone, picked Israel Adesanya to defeat Sean Strickland, because he's such a good counter striker, and Sean Strickland is such a walk forward, throwing many shots that we, like myself and many others, expected Sean Strickland to throw one too many shots and get countered by Israel Adesanya. Of course, as we know now, that's not the case, and he did extremely well to just overwhelm Izzy. Didn't allow him to ever really get a read on Izzy. But like I said, I really do think that this fight is going to be determined by the jab of Sean Strickland, and if Sean Strickland can get that jab going early, find the range, because it's a dangerous fight for Sean Strickland. Dricus du Plessis, like I said, he's got a big finishing rate. He's a big guy. He's got a big finishing rate. He's got what six fights in the UFC, five finishes. Like I said, overall, let me just check his record. 20-2 overall with 19 finishes. So he's only been to a decision once in his career. I didn't even realize that. Like I said, he's a really heavy hitter, Dricus du Plessis, but he does have his weaknesses. Like I said, he's quite wild with his strikes. He does like to come round the top and throw sort of big haymakers. And most importantly, what is his cardio like? Because Sean Strickland in that final round against Israel Adesanya, he looked like he just stepped off the couch. He wasn't breathing heavy at all. He was ready to go another 5 rounds. But we've never seen Dricus du Plessis. We've seen Dricus du Plessis go the full 15-minute distance once, and he looked gassed in that one. He has supposedly had sort of corrective surgery on his nose in order to allow him to breathe better, and therefore obviously, can take in more oxygen. Cardio should be better, but I do have serious doubts about Dricus du Plessis' cardio. Average fight time for Sean Strickland 14 minutes 43. Average fight time for Dricus du Plessis 9 minutes 11. With that being said, if you look at Sean Strickland's recent record, he's gone 25 minutes with Israel Adesanya. He went 25 minutes in this time last year against Nasruddin Imanov. He went 25 minutes with Jared Cannonier. He went 25 minutes with Jack Hermansson. I think he went 25 minutes with Uriah Hall. This guy is a seasoned 25-minute fighter, and he can fight as quickly in round one as he will, as quickly in round five as he did in round one. We just quickly pull up the stats from that Israel Adesanya fight. He threw 27 shots in the first round and 36 shots in the sixth round. He can fight at a really good pace for the full 25 minutes. Can Dricus du Plessis? We've never actually seen that happen. What I would say is that this is we've potentially got a fight of the night on our hands in the main event, which isn't always the case. Sometimes it's a bit of a chess match, but these two men don't play chess. These two men are two walk forward fighters that will walk to the center of the octagon as soon as the bell goes and throw down. And I think, like I said, I think Dricus is the power puncher of the two, but I think that he can't just rely on that power punching ability, because if he does, he will gas out if he can't land on Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland has to get the jab working. He has to get these pop shots working. He has to get Dricus du Plessis off his rhythm a little bit. And what I do think as well is that both men, more so Sean Strickland in my opinion, need to manage their emotions. These two guys don't like each other. We saw the antics at that at the pay. I think it was UFC 296 with the two guys attacking each other, and Strickland attacking du Plessis in the crowd. They need to. I hope we don't have an ugly fight week with words exchanged between the two. This is mixed martial arts. This is martial arts. There should be an element of respect there, but you need to be able to manage your emotions in there. And if Sean Strickland can do it, I think that he could put on a performance again like he did against Israel Adesanya. If Dricus du Plessis can, not be affected by, let's not forget, it's the first time Dricus is scheduled for 25 minutes in the UFC. Never headlined a fight night. He's never headlined a pay-per-view. From what I understand, Israel Adesanya is going to be cage side for this one. So Dricus can't allow that to distract him. The potential of that big sort of all-African fight between South Africa and Nigeria, as it were. Dricus just got to go in there, do his thing, land the heavy shots, come at Sean Strickland from strange angles that he's maybe not expecting, and I think Dricus gets it done potentially by knockout. He can work the body of Sean Strickland and then go upstairs to the head. I think he can probably get it done by knockout, but I would not in the slightest bit be surprised if Sean Strickland outpoints Dricus du Plessis over 25 minutes, or if he potentially even stops him late on, due to, Dricus's failing cardio. We will see on Saturday night. I'm very, very excited for UFC 297. Like I said, there's competitive fights all up and down the card. There's a lot of good fighters to look out for that can set themselves up for big 2024s. Let's not forget, we're only in January. We've got 11 months left, and there's a potential, we've got 2 title fights, potential title challenges littered throughout the card. So definitely check in. Next week, I'll be reviewing the card. I'll be looking ahead to the week after. Once again, guys, thanks to Manscaped for the sponsorship. Use the code SUCKA, that's SUCKA, for 20% off and worldwide shipping with our code SUCKA at Manscaped. Your balls will thank you. I'll thank you because it really helps me out and the podcast out. Thanks for listening, guys. I'll catch you next time.